This is a must-watch zombie-themed animation, where the main character is just an ordinary office worker with no rest time apart from his job. On the surface he looks alive, but inside he has already died. Zombie movies are his perfect entertainment during meals because, compared to the company, the world in the movies is simply heaven. But one day, the world actually broke out into a zombie crisis, and instead of fear, he felt incredible excitement.
会社に行かなくていい一日って、なんて素晴らしいんだ!
Just 2.5 years ago, Akira was a passionate young man with ambitions. Fresh out of graduation, he entered an advertising company with dreams and met a woman who completely matched his ideal type there. He instantly fell hopelessly in love with Saori. That night, the company held a dinner party to welcome Akira, and not only were his colleagues enthusiastic, but Saori also showed him kindness. Akira thought he was about to win both love and career, his future bright, when after the meal his colleagues suddenly changed expressions and all pulled out their work IDs. That's right, they had to go back to the office to work overtime. Akira was no exception. He worked through the entire night. Before he could rest even a little, the second day's work began, and it lasted all the way into the night. After 2.5 days, Akira finally returned home from the company for the first time. Exhausted, he collapsed on the bed without even taking a shower. The next morning, when the alarm rang, he suddenly felt he didn't want to go to work because he didn't know how many more days would pass before he could come home again. But for his dreams, he forced himself up and walked out the door, since his seniors had all endured the same way. And so Akira pushed through this high-pressure environment for a whole year. Smelling the stench on himself, he couldn't even remember the last time he had showered. During this time, colleagues kept leaving the company, and with no new hires to replace them, the workload was dumped onto Akira, and in his mind there was only one thought. The only reason he stayed in this company was Saori. Although he secretly loved her, he never had the courage to confess. Then one day the company president called Saori into his office, and with the closing of that door, the last defense in Akira's heart collapsed. Realizing her relationship with the president, Akira thought about quitting. But he had no time to search for another job, and leaving suddenly would only cause trouble for his seniors. Even if he went to another company, it might not be easier than now. Under this extreme pressure, Akira completely became a walking corpse. While waiting for the subway, he even thought the guardrails were in the way, because without them, maybe he wouldn't have to go to work tomorrow. From then on, his life lost all color. One day on his way to work, he noticed an unpaid parking slip. When he went to the office to pay, he witnessed a horrifying scene of people eating each other, and the manager, who had already turned into a zombie, noticed him. The manager's body twisted unnaturally, then lunged at Akira with a strange posture. At that moment, Akira finally snapped out of it. After all, he had once been an athlete, and in no time, he managed to shake off those zombies. Just as he wondered what was happening, a suddenly opening door blocked his way.
Zombie? Zombie? ゾンビでもゾンビだよな、これ。どうすんだっていうか、このままじゃ会社に遅れちまう。あれ？っていうか、もしかしてこれってもう今日から会社行かなくてもいいんじゃね？やったー！ 俺に見えていたのは黒いもやに覆われたモノトーンの世界だった。青い空、緑の木々、真っ赤な血。いつから忘れてたんだろう。世界ってこんなにも鮮やかな色に満ち溢れてたんだな。会社に行かなくていい一日ってなんて素晴らしいんだ。
After escaping, Akira looked up at the sky he hadn't seen in so long, and finally felt relaxed. He thought of all the things he had wanted to do but never had the time for, and decided to complete them all before becoming a zombie himself. The first thing that came to mind was Saori. Even though Akira knew she didn't belong to him, he still decided to find her and tell her what he had felt for the past 2.5 years. He jumped on his bike and raced through the streets. Although the streets were filled with zombies like a scene of the apocalypse, the more dangerous it became, the more excited Akira felt, as if he had been injected with adrenaline. He quickly arrived at Saori's home, rang the bell, but she never answered. He understood what that meant, pulled the door, and found it unlocked.
大鳥さん、安否確認に来まし。社長。社長、大事な話があるのですが、少々お時間よろしいでしょうか。日々の激務に忙殺され、人間らしい生活を忘れ、自分が何のために働いてるのかが分からなくなってしまいました。そこで大変申し上げにくいのですが、今一度本来の自分を取り戻したく、本日付で退職する決意をいたしました。至らないところの多い私を今日までご指導していただき、本当にありがとうございました。誠に身勝手な理由ではございますが、ご了承いただきますよう何卒よろしくお願いします。
Inside, he saw Saori, who had indeed turned into a zombie. Though sad, Akira held back his emotions, confessed his love to her, and then left.
さようなら、俺の大好きな人。
That night, Akira went to a convenience store and started his shopping spree.
俺たちの命があと1日だろうが60年だろうが、やりたいことをやれる時間はあまりにも短い。だったら俺は
He threw all the garbage from his apartment down the stairs and cleaned the home he hadn't touched in 2.5 years. With the room finally tidy, his mood lifted. He took a beer from the fridge and drank, savoring the joy of not working and being able to drink from morning. The release from heavy labor made him burst into tears, and he decided to keep drinking all day at home. But when he opened the fridge again, he was stunned. There was no more beer, not even food. He had no choice but to go out again. Looking at the zombies wandering downstairs, he hesitated. But for beer, he gritted his teeth and stepped outside. At the same time, a couple downstairs was worrying, their supplies gone with zombies outside the door, and they had lost hope.
一体どうしたら？誰でもいい。誰か助け。どう
したのあなた？まさかザビ。
Akira was also left with no choice but to take this path, because the stairwell was now filled with zombies. When he learned of their situation, he promised to bring them supplies too.
じゃあよろしくお願いします。
できればトイレの紙もダブルで。
After saying goodbye, he rode off on his bike. Though the streets were crawling with zombies and once surrounded, there would be no escape. He wasn't afraid, because all he wanted was a sip of beer. Soon he reached a convenience store. Meanwhile, a camera on a nearby bike was recording him, but Akira didn't notice, humming a tune as he jogged into the store. Just as he picked up a basket to start shopping, a figure caught his attention. He hadn't expected to see another person, and she was a stunning woman. She didn't seem surprised at his arrival, and when he tried to chat, she stayed cold, took her supplies, and turned to leave. Having finally met a woman, Akira naturally didn't want to let her go just like that. So, he decisively chased after her to ask for her contact information. But she remained silent, only pulling out her phone. Akira thought she had agreed, but just then, the woman finally spoke.
余計なお世話でしょうけれど、 そんなもののために街中に出ることがプライオリティの高いタスクとは到底思えないわね。
プライ
リスクヘッジもまともにできない人とアライアンスを組むメリットは見込めない。一緒にいるとこちらの生存率まで下がりかねないので、連絡先の交換はお断りさせていただくわ。
お姉さん危ないね。
Then the woman left without looking back, and Akira was stunned by what had just happened. When he snapped out of it, he discovered his bike was already broken. Seeing the woman's heroic figure, Akira suddenly felt like he was in love again, and he couldn't help but look forward to their next meeting. But now was not the time to think about that. As he wondered how to get back, he suddenly noticed a scooter with the key still in, so he jumped on without hesitation. He had to admit, riding this was much easier than pedaling a bicycle. And soon after, Akira spotted an even better motorcycle.
最高進化系ウェイおお
When he returned to the apartment, Akira planned to take the same route back, but passing by his neighbor's home, he had wanted to greet them, only to see blood splattered everywhere inside, and he instantly understood what had happened. Back home, Akira sat by the window in a daze, thinking that if he was going to turn into a zombie in the end, he might as well do the things he always wanted to but never had time for. So he pulled out a notebook and wrote down what he had already done, confessing to the girl he liked, cleaning his messy room, drinking alcohol in the morning without caring, and riding a motorbike through the streets, all of which he had accomplished. But the things he wanted to do went far beyond that. Akira wrote down 30 wishes in one breath, but couldn't think of any more. It was only then he realized that his true self had already been lost in the endless cycle of work. Suddenly he thought of his parents in the countryside and wondered if they were safe. Although he already guessed the answer, he still wrote down the wish of returning home and spending the rest of his days with them. He also added 2 more wishes, drinking with his friends and finding a woman he truly liked. After finishing, Akira quietly closed the notebook, and on the cover were the words, 100 things to do before becoming a zombie. But unlike Akira, Shizuka's list was 100 things to do to avoid becoming a zombie. The first was waking up every day at 6 in the morning, then jogging on the treadmill for an hour. After that, she took various supplements to strengthen her body. Then she tried contacting different countries online, but every attempt failed, showing that the zombie virus had already spread worldwide. She also studied zombie behavior, dividing them into 2 main types: the slow walkers, who weren't too dangerous, and the runners, who were much more threatening. Knowing this, if she could immediately determine their type when encountering zombies, her chances of survival would increase. After finishing her routine, Shizuka left home to gather supplies. Unlike Akira, she acted with extreme caution, even setting up a camera before entering a convenience store. She only took essential survival goods and healthy food. But despite her discipline, being a young woman, she couldn't resist the temptation of sweets, and after 2.5 seconds of hesitation, she gave up. Later, Akira appeared in the supermarket, but she had already seen him through her bike camera, which was why she wasn't surprised at all. She also knew Akira would attract zombies, and while she planned to leave early, an accident still happened. Not only did zombies rush into the store, but a runaway truck came crashing toward them. She quickly figured out a way to escape based on these 2 threats. But what she didn't expect was Akira rushing forward to protect her, leading to the scene we saw earlier. Back home, Shizuka recorded the zombie behavior she had observed that day, but when she thought about Akira's actions, she couldn't help but complain. Wondering how anyone could be that happy just for a beer, still she was influenced by him. Because when she remembered the sweets and looked again at her sugar control plan, her thoughts began to change.
まあ、桜餅くらい我慢しなくてもよかったかな。
If one day a zombie crisis suddenly broke out, survivors would fall into these categories. Those who formed groups to fight zombies.
気合い入れろ
！Those who panicked and ran into the streets to die. Those who locked themselves inside and waited for death. Those who were strictly disciplined and struggled to survive. And those like Akira, who wanted to go completely wild before turning into a zombie. His 10th wish was to grow a rugged Western-style beard, but for an Asian man this was nearly impossible. So that wish had to be abandoned. At that moment, Akira suddenly received several text messages, and the discovery thrilled him, because it meant his phone had regained signal. He immediately contacted all his friends from his address book, since for the past 3 years of nonstop overtime, he had turned down every invitation to drink with them. But after waiting for a long time, he didn't receive a single reply, and realized they had all likely turned into zombies like the ones downstairs, never to use a phone again. The thought saddened him, as he wondered what all those years of busy work had been for, when now he didn't even have a single friend to contact. Then he suddenly thought of his college rugby teammate, Kenicho, with whom he had reunited once during his first working year. Unlike Akira the office worker, Kenicho had become a real estate agent, and with his natural charisma, he not only thrived at work but also had a model girlfriend. Compared to the exhausted Akira, they were worlds apart. Kenicho had once advised Akira to quit, but Akira hadn't listened, and the two even had a big fight. Though they had parted unhappily, Akira knew with Kenichiro's abilities, he surely would not die so easily. So Akira immediately called him, and just as expected, Kenicho was alive, though trapped in a hotel. Seeing Akira's call, Kenicho froze, and when the line connected, Akira only asked his location before jumping on his motorbike and heading out. Soon, Akira arrived in Kenichiro's city. Meanwhile, of those who had chosen to fight zombies, only their leader Sho was still alive. Watching his comrades turned into zombies, he fell into despair. But just as he was about to give up, a car horn suddenly blared, drawing all the zombies over and saving his life. At the same time, the zombies inside Kenichiro's hotel were also drawn out by the sound. All of this was Akira's doing. Just as the zombies swarmed in, Akira climbed out of the water, and by then the car used to lure them had already been destroyed by the zombies. Without time to think, Akira rushed into the hotel, found Kenicho, and apologized. He deeply regretted not taking Kenichiro's advice back then, and also regretted arguing with him. At the time, he was just jealous of how happy Kenicho seemed, so he had taken out his frustrations on him. Kenicho didn't expect Akira to be so emotional, but before he could reply, their noise drew zombies from below. With no choice, the two ran up to the roof. At the top, Kenicho held the door while Akira dragged an air conditioner unit to block it, barely holding it shut. But this was only temporary. They knew that this thing could never really hold back the zombies. When Kenicho didn't know what to do, Akira came up with an idea. Jump to the next building. Kenicho thought he was insane because the gap was at least 10 meters, but Akira already prepared to sprint.
無理かどうかは飛べばわかる。アキラ！
大丈夫か
どうだ
Kenicho froze, unable to believe that Akira had just jumped across. Looking at the gap, he swallowed hard, backed up a few steps and thought about quitting. Then he admitted to Akira that he didn't feel happy at all in his work, because every day he had to fake a smile and trick clients into signing contracts. Even with his boss's approval, even dining with politicians and athletes, even dating a beautiful model, he never once felt true happiness. He had only been pretending, hiding his emptiness with a glamorous image. Compared to that false life, he confessed he always had a different dream.
俺は本当はお笑い芸人になりたかったんだ
だったらそんな会社さっさと辞めちまって今からなればいいじゃねえか俺の教訓だ。友達のアドバイスは聞いとくもんだぜ。芸人なら腹くくってそんくらい飛んでみ 見せやがれ。
アキラ、手貸してくれ。これはギャグじゃねえ。俺この流れで死ぬの？全裸で。うわっ！アキラ！
よいしょどうしたケンチョ？まさかゾンビに噛まれて。
カスター！
That night, Akira and Kenichiro drank together on the rooftop, fulfilling Akira's 30-second wish. Akira's 18th wish had been camping indoors, and Kenichiro helped him achieve it. While going through the bucket list, Kenichiro noticed that one of Akira's wishes was to have a social gathering with flight attendants. He was left speechless, pointing out that most women in the world had already turned into zombies, so where would they find any flight attendants? But to keep Akira's spirits up, Kenichiro wrote down one of his own wishes on the list. From then on, Akira's wishes would be his as well, because without Akira he would already be dead, so he might as well go crazy with him until the end. Akira was deeply moved, and together they decided to get a giant television, which was one of the wishes on the list. They set out right away, riding their motorbike to the mall. But at the entrance, a fire truck blocked their way, leaving them no choice but to find another route. Just then, a runaway tanker truck charged toward them. If this continued, the tanker would definitely be ignited by the flames ahead. And with nowhere left to dodge, Akira fixed his eyes on the entrance to the underground parking lot. But just after they escaped one danger, a group of zombies appeared in front of them. Frightened, Akira slammed the brakes, and given the situation, they could only abandon the motorcycle and run. They noticed a roll-up shutter nearby that wasn't fully closed, and in the urgency of the moment, they had no choice but to gamble, so Akira slid under it and rushed in with Kenichiro. Then they pulled the shutter down together and successfully blocked the zombies. Before they could breathe a sigh of relief, a strong light suddenly shone on them from behind, and someone asked whether they had been infected. Akira hadn't expected survivors here at all, and they were 3 beautiful women, so he greeted them with excitement. But the women were clearly displeased, and from the pale face of the middle-aged man beside them, it was obvious they had just narrowly escaped. Seeing everyone on the verge of breaking down, Kenichiro hurried over to comfort them, saying that at least in this supermarket they didn't need to worry about food. His words did help a little. Reika then walked straight to the liquor shelf, grabbed a bottle, and planned to drink to forget her troubles, and Akira and Kenichiro joined in. Maki suggested everyone introduce themselves. Hearing this, a familiar feeling washed over Akira and Kenichiro, because the scene was exactly like a speed dating event. Thinking of this, Akira instantly became nervous. Seeing this, Kenichiro quickly pulled Akira along and started the introductions. The middle-aged man nearby still hadn't recovered, so Kenichiro let it go. Then it was the 3 young women's turn, and to their surprise, all 3 turned out to be flight attendants. By sheer coincidence, Akira had unknowingly fulfilled another wish. Just as everyone was about to raise their glasses, pounding on the door from the zombies outside interrupted them and sent fear through the group again. Reika, however, showed no panic, finished one bottle, and went to get another. As the atmosphere cooled, Akira decided to take the initiative and went to chat with Yukari.
ゆかりさんは彼氏とかいたりするんですか？
それって今聞かなきゃいけないことなんですか？
ですよね！絶対違うよね！
Akira felt like a fool, so he quickly sent a plea for help to Kenichiro. In just that short time, Kenichiro had already won over Maki with smooth talk. Watching the affectionate Kenichiro and Maki, Akira shed tears of envy and tried to signal Kenichiro to help him too. But Kenichiro gave Akira the final blow with a smug look, and unwilling to accept it, Akira picked up a wine bottle and decided to perform a talent show for everyone.
男天童明、ブラック会社に3年勤め、根性だけは誰にも負けません。今からテキーラ鼻で一気してみせます。
いや、鼻でテキーラってお前。
ああ
With Akira's energy, the mood finally heated up, but he ended up drinking too much and collapsed. Akira staggered to the restroom and threw up because drinking through his nose would make anyone miserable. At that moment, Yukari came to find him, and Kenichiro also took Maki to the shop upstairs. Reika, meanwhile, was drinking and complaining to the middle-aged man, completely unaware of the ferocious look on his face. It turned out he had already been bitten by a zombie. After transforming, the man moved toward Reika.
なんだ今の声。
By the time Kenichiro arrived, it was too late, because Reika had already become a zombie.
レイカちゃん！おお、マジかマジだ！おお。
Meanwhile, as Akira was talking with Yukari, the man who had turned into a zombie spotted them. Before Akira could react, it had already knocked Yukari to the ground. Seeing the bite on her, Yukari knew she was in danger, and as the zombie rose again, she decisively pushed Akira out.
なんだか今日はコンパみたいで楽しかったね。
Although Akira was heartbroken, he could do nothing more. Akira then successfully regrouped with Kenichiro. Even at a time like this, Kenichiro still thought of Akira and hauled a giant television for him.
どうだ！探してきてやったぜ！
お手柄県庁！
よし！ゾンビどもどっか行ってる！さっさと撤収だ！
They returned to base safely. Although Akira fulfilled his wish of playing games on an ultra-large TV, he still felt a hollow emptiness inside.
いつかなりたいとずっと思い描いてた夢だったからかな。
だからこれは私の夢。私はやっぱり今の仕事が好き。
If a zombie crisis broke out, then a great white shark with a mouth full of sharp teeth would absolutely be among the most terrifying beings in the zombie world. It is said to have a bite force weighing up to 1.8 tons, making any creature seem small before it. You might say a shark is only dangerous in water, but if a shark had 6 legs, how would you handle it? Yet even under circumstances where even sharks were infected with the zombie virus, Akira fantasized about becoming a superhero. It had always been his childhood dream, and before turning into a zombie, he wanted to experience what it felt like to save people from zombies. Kenichiro was speechless about this. After all, Akira had no superpowers, and with his mortal body, going outside would only mean certain death. Akira said it was fine, because he had found a tool that could help him fight zombies. Without waiting for Kenichiro's confusion to clear, he wrote this as wish number 36 in his notebook and headed out on his own. Though helpless, Kenichiro still went with Akira, and this tool was hidden inside the aquarium. When they entered, they found the place in a mess, yet without a single zombie. But it wasn't completely safe because the fish in the tanks had been infected. Thanks to that, Akira quickly found the tool he had mentioned. The so-called tool was a shark-proof diving suit, woven from carbon fiber and high-tension steel fiber, so with this suit not only zombies but even large sharks would be unable to bite through it. With it, he would be nearly untouchable in front of zombies. Meanwhile, a bus full of survivors was trapped near the aquarium, and just as panic spread among them, the face of a young man on the bus suddenly twisted. A woman beside him tried to check on him and discovered a bite on his arm, and he had already turned into a zombie. Everyone on the bus panicked and fled, but zombies were everywhere outside too, so the first to escape instantly became food for the zombies. Thanks to their sacrifice, some survivors managed to reach the aquarium. Even so, the zombies kept closing in, and the terrified Kumiko tripped and fell. At that moment, Akira arrived just in time.
大丈夫ですか、お嬢さん。今のうちに行きなさい。そこまでだ、ゾンビども。アキライが参上。
While he was showing off to Kenichiro, more survivors ran toward them, so Akira quickly directed them to escape into the aquarium. Then Akira noticed a familiar figure, the very woman who had saved him at the convenience store, Shizuka. He hadn't expected to meet her again here. Just as he felt a surge of emotion, a zombie lunged at Akira and clamped down on his arm. Even with the protective suit, Akira fell to the ground in pain, and more zombies piled onto him. Seeing Akira trapped, Kenichiro wasn't surprised, because the suit could stop bites, but not the force behind them. Kenichiro shut the door, leaving Akira outside. Of course, this wasn't because Kenichiro was heartless, but because he knew these few zombies couldn't possibly defeat Akira. Soon, Akira broke free with his own strength and threw the zombies off the bridge. Back inside the aquarium, Akira complained to Kenichiro and then went over to talk to Shizuka. Shizuka remembered Akira, and when he asked to team up, she refused decisively. She felt his impulsive behavior would lower her chances of survival, so she believed Akira wasn't fit to be her teammate. Just then, a loud crash sounded nearby, and Akira hurried off with Kenichiro to check it out. That move made Shizuka's opinion of him change slightly. When Akira and Kenichiro arrived, they found a strange creature.
サメ？
いや、でも足。
ああ、そっか。じゃあ、なんだ？
みんな逃げろ！
サメだ！どうする？ヒーローならこんな時。え？とりあえず一旦退却だよな！
Even in that moment, Shizuka calmly analyzed the situation, saying it was likely a fusion of a diver who had been eaten by a shark and the shark's body. Then, with a sharp turn, everyone used the narrow stairs to shake off the shark. When they reached the upper floor, they found everyone frozen in place because all the zombies had gathered on the second level. Just as everyone was looking for another way out, the shark swam up from below through the water tank and, with its sharp teeth, instantly tore several survivors to shreds. Amid the chaos, Shizuka found an emergency exit.
みんなこっちだ！
急げ！
ちょっと落ち着きなさい。
急げ！
Just as the group escaped and caught their breath, Akira realized Shizuka was missing. Kenichiro was about to rush out to help, but the door had been bent and wouldn't open, and when he turned around, Akira was already gone. Meanwhile, Shizuka, faced with the shark before her, fell into despair. She had refused Akira's invitations multiple times precisely because she was afraid of being dragged down by incompetent teammates, yet in the end, She still ended up in this situation. Just as she was about to accept her fate, Akira appeared.
Akira 君、なんで何しにここへ。
何って、これ助けに来た以外あります？
あなた本当にどうかしてる。そこまでして何のために。
もういいじゃないですか、そういうの。誰だって腹減ったら目いっぱい食いたいし、可愛い女の子と出会えたら仲良くなりたい。目の前で助けを求める人がいたらヒーローになりたい。そこにいちいち理由が必要なんすか。
Akira's words reignited Shizuka's will to live, and she immediately asked what his battle plan was. Akira didn't have any plan at all, and as the shark attacked again, they had no choice but to retreat for the moment. Shizuka suddenly called out to Akira, saying she had thought of an idea, one so foolish she could hardly believe it herself. But Akira's actions had given her the courage to take the gamble. Kenicho caught up at that moment, and just as he was about to jump down to save them, the shark's roar made him back away in fear. While Kenicho hesitated, Shizuka told Akira her plan. Akira would distract the shark while she went to find a battery. The truth was that the shark's head had an organ that could sense voltage, which allowed it to detect the faint electric currents from the muscles of small fish and hunt them. So if they could strike that organ with something electric, the shark's brain would be thrown into chaos and collapse instantly. But just as Shizuka pulled a battery from a flashlight, Akira was struck hard by the shark and sent flying dozens of meters before hitting the ground. The impact left him unable to move. As the shark slowly closed in on Akira, Kenicho made his move, stripping off his clothes and using his body to lure the shark's attention. This bought Akira and Shizuka the time they needed.
狙うはロレンチーニメ。
乾電池の放電で効果は無限大。果たしてゾンビ化したサメに効くかどうかは知らんけど。
試してみればわかるぞ。バリバリサンダーバーチ。
After dealing with the shark, they successfully escaped from the aquarium, and as for those survivors who would only slow them down, they could no longer be bothered with them. Akira seized the chance to invite Shizuka to team up again. Though grateful for Akira saving her life, she still rejected his offer, because what she wanted was to do the things necessary to avoid becoming a zombie, while Akira wanted to do the things he dreamed of before becoming one. So their survival philosophies clashed. What truly made her refuse in the end was Akira's obsession with heroism.
赤の他人の私を助けようとしたために、あなたの大切な人が危険を冒す羽目になった。そんな人と同行してたら命がいくつあっても足りない。
いやでも、俺にとってお姉さんはもう大切な人ですから。ヒーローにならなくたってきっと助けてましたよ。
Even though Shizuka rejected Akira, before leaving she still gave him her contact information.
どうせもう会うこともないんだし、あなたと連絡先ぐらい交換しても大してリスクにはならないわ。
After saying goodbye to Shizuka, Akira prepared to return to his hometown with Kenicho.
東京はもう十分かな。
じゃあ行ってみるか。
おい、関東の秘境群馬へ。そろそろ親に元気な顔の一つでも見せてやりてえし。
Because the journey was too long, they decided to first get a camping vehicle, as it came equipped with a kitchen and toilet, and also provided a comfortable space where they didn't have to worry about zombies. So they wouldn't have to fret about where to sleep every day. Then they headed directly to the camping vehicle exhibition. But to Akira's surprise, he ran into Shizuka again. Meeting her 3 times in a row by coincidence, Akira felt this had to be fate, so he once again invited Shizuka to join them. But Shizuka refused without a second thought, because Akira's way of doing things was far too reckless, and being with him would mean facing too many life-threatening dangers. The reason Shizuka was here was also to look for a camping vehicle. Seeing her idea matched his, Akira quickly invited her again to travel together. Kenicho stepped in to help, asking Shizuka if she had a driver's license. Hearing this, Shizuka suddenly remembered that she couldn't drive, so under their constant persuasion, she reluctantly agreed. They entered the exhibition hall together, and before their eyes were all kinds of campers, from tracked all-terrain vehicles to cranes with booms, and even campers with massage tubs. Seeing the camper van they picked, Shizuka was utterly helpless. In a world full of zombies, the first thing to consider was maneuverability and flexibility in emergencies, and second was adaptability to different roads. After weighing the options, Shizuka chose a powerful four-wheel drive off-road vehicle. At that moment, Akira and Kenicho shouted in amazement because they had their eyes on a luxury camper worth 20 million. Seeing the luxury suite inside, Akira didn't hesitate and picked it. Of course, Shizuka objected because with abandoned cars everywhere on the roads, it was smarter to choose the off-road vehicle with strong crash protection. But Akira refused, because to him, that car didn't even look like a camper. While they argued, Shizuka noticed another camper, one that didn't meet her external standards but whose interior was exactly her ideal style.
やだ素敵この車乗りたいかも
やっぱあるじゃん乗りたい車
違う今のなし
やっぱ車は夢とロマンション
安全性と利便性
Just then, a horde of zombies flooded into the hall, leaving them no time to choose, and they rushed into a random camper. Luckily, the keys were inside, so they managed to escape, and Akira also completed his 17th wish. They drove straight onto the highway, planning to head for Akira's hometown. As they wondered why there were no cars on the road, suddenly a row of spikes appeared. Kenicho, who was riding a motorcycle, was directly thrown off and seriously injured. While Akira was at a loss, several buses rolled in and blocked the road. Then, a group of baseball boys appeared, led by none other than Akira's former boss, Gonzo. This was all his doing.
誰かと思えば天道じゃねえか。お前会社も行かずにこんなところで何してるんだ。
あなたは小杉リーダー。
Remembering the scoldings from Gonzo at work, Akira felt his stomach twist and a wave of fear rise inside. Though he seemed weak, Akira had lived under Gonzo's shadow for 2.5 years, and from a psychological point of view, such fear was normal. Gonzo said he could treat Kenicho and fix their tire, but only if Akira worked for him for a few days. As Akira hesitated, the noise attracted a massive wave of zombies. So for Kenichiro's sake, Akira had no choice but to agree. They were taken back to Gonzo's base, where many survivors were present, but no matter their age or gender, they were all doing hard labor with no rest. As for those baseball kids, they became the overseers. Seeing this scene identical to a black-hearted company, Akira was terrified. But Gonzo did keep his word, providing some medical supplies for Kenicho. Fortunately, no bones were broken, because with such simple equipment, Kenicho would have been ruined. Akira's job was to haul supplies, and though his stamina was great, even he couldn't endure endless work hours. After 2 full days, Akira was at his limit. He noticed crates of beer in the truck, and seeing everyone sweating in the heat, he started the generator to chill the beer, planning to give everyone cold drinks that night. But Gonzo caught him in the act. Seeing Akira use electricity in a city where the power grid had collapsed, Gonzo exploded in anger. To him, those people were beneath animals, and giving them cold beer was a waste of resources. Akira wanted to argue, but the familiar pressure radiating from Gonzo froze his thoughts. Just then, Gonzo's men walked in.
もしかして俺たちのためっすか？
ボシュしか飲ませてくれないのにどうしちゃったんすか
So Gonzo shifted his tone to maintain his image in front of them.
ちょうど天道に今晩みんなに冷えたビールを振る舞うよう指示を出していたところだ。もちろんここにいる全員の分もだ。今夜は天道たちの歓迎会も兼ねて日頃の疲れを存分に癒してくれ。これは会社のために日を尽くしてくれている君たちへの俺からのほんのささやかな感謝の気持ちだよ。
やっぱ小杉さん懐広いわついてきてよかったっすよ
When they left, Gonzo immediately showed another face. Akira then saw something shocking. Gonzo was exploiting zombies as labor.
物資を運ばせてるのか？
Gonzo even spoke out his true thoughts, saying that these zombies were just like Akira and the others, nothing more than replaceable parts of the company. And since they had no self-awareness and no thoughts, he could easily lure them with bait and make them work.
そして天道、お前もあいつらと等しくただの部品の一つでしかないんだぞ。勘違いしてるようだが、お前自分には特別な何かができると思ってないか？お前はお前が思っているよりもずっと無価値だよ。お前にできることなんてせいぜい俺の言うこと聞いてあのゾンビくらいは役に立つかどうか程度のことだよ。お前らみたいなただの部品は汗水垂らして働いてぬるい発泡酒を飲み、たまの贅沢に冷えたビールを飲む、それ以上の幸せなんてないだろ。違うか？分かったら部品は部品らしく黙って手足だけ動かせ。いいなクソ部品が。
So every day, Akira hauled hundreds of tons of supplies, while others enjoyed themselves with beer, and he was stuck carrying and pouring drinks. Even when insulted by Gonzo for mistakes, he never complained. And this is the horror of workplace psychological manipulation. First, Gonzo constantly attacked and denied Akira's value, making him lose confidence.
お前みたいなグズでノロマでバカで怠惰な根性なしは生きてるだけで損失だ。息するだけでも社会の無駄だ。一生ここで働いたって全然足りねえくらいなんだよ。
Then he glorified the exploitation, making Akira believe it was for his own good.
俺が厳しいことを言うのも本当はお前のことを買ってるからこそなんだぞ。
Next, he warned how dangerous the outside world was.
自由は大変だぞ。自由は全部自分で考えなくちゃいけない。何を食べるか、どこで寝るか、いつクソをするか、そんなことずっと考え続けてみろ。しんどいぞ。間違いなく発狂する。天道、俺はお前にそんな思いはしてほしくない。だから俺が指示してやる。俺の言う通りにしておけば何も考えなくて済む。
Since Akira had spent 2.5 years under Gonzo, when facing his former boss, his mind went completely blank, and he was quickly brainwashed by Gonzo. He even forgot that he had come here only to heal Kenichiro. So when Kenichiro and Shizuka prepared to leave, Akira refused, saying he would stay and repay Gonzo's kindness. Seeing Akira like this, Shizuka felt as if she was looking at her past self, because her father was a successful entrepreneur, and from childhood, she had been forced to become strong, with every action required to follow his orders. Although Shizuka was unwilling in her heart, she still obeyed all of her father's arrangements. She knew that if she didn't comply, she would have no way to survive in that household. But Akira's actions woke her up.
私も今日まで今のあなたと同じだった。けどあなたのおかげでようやく目が覚めたわ。私はもう二度と誰にも私を渡さない。明日も知れぬこの世界でどれが効率的で何が正解かなんて誰にもわからない。けれど少なくとも今の私は1秒でも早く全身全霊でこのクソみたいにキモい親父の前から全力で立ち去りたいのよ。
Then Shizuka handed Akira's wish list back to him, asking him to remember what he truly wanted to do. When Akira looked down, he saw that somehow a 37th wish had been written. It turned out Shizuka had noticed his notebook earlier and added it herself. While Akira was distracted, Gonzo suddenly snatched the notebook and threw it to the ground. Looking at all the wishes he had already completed, Akira finally woke up, thinking it was already the end of the world. So, why was he still listening to this man? After all, there were still many things he had always wanted to do in the past but had never done.
リーダー、こんな俺のこと気にかけてくれてありがとうございました。でもやっぱりここでお別れしたいです。これ以上関わりたくないです。あなたとはもう二度と会いたくありません。
Just as Gonzo tried to persuade him again, the team that had gone out for supplies returned. But none of them realized that a zombie had snuck into their truck.
とにかく見てくださいよ。絶対びっくりしますから。
落ち着け。ゾンビはたったの一体だ。冷静に対処すれば消えなきゃ。おい、死にたくない。
Now, there was no longer just one zombie. Seeing the situation slip out of control, everyone scrambled onto the roof of the truck. Because Gonzo was too overweight to climb up, he became the feast every zombie fixed their eyes on, and seeing this, Akira decided to unite everyone to save him. As they were discussing, Gonzo gradually began to lose his strength. Just as the zombies lunged at him, Akira drove up in a food truck and sent them flying. Kenichiro couldn't stand it, not understanding why Akira would save such a terrible man. After Akira pulled Gonzo onto the food truck, the others drove their cargo trucks over and trapped the zombies inside. It turned out that before Akira drove the food truck over, he had already loosened the gas tanks inside.
さあ、行きますよ。
いくって、まさかここから飛ぶってことか。
2の3。
Although his actions seemed overly compassionate, it was thanks to Gonzo being used as bait that Akira was able to take out all the zombies in one go, so naturally, he became the big hero. Even Shizuka, who had never thought much of Akira, praised him. As they laughed, Gonzo came over again.
でこそ俺の見込んだ部下だ。いい手本になったろう。お前たちも天道を見習って今後はもっと。
悪いけど小杉さん、正直もうあんたの下で働くのはうんざりだわ。だいたい人使ってばっかで自分は何もしてねえじゃん。ワンマンだし。
さっきの新入りの方がよっぽどリーダーらしかったぜ。
私たちも十分に務めは果たしたつもりなので、
そろそろ出発させてもらいますね。
お疲れ様でした。
But this time, no one listened and everyone drove away, leaving him alone. Akira and his friends continued on their journey home. On the road, they suddenly saw a truck surrounded by zombies. Akira guessed survivors were inside, so he put on his shark suit and prepared to play hero again. Before he could finish speaking, the truck door was kicked open, and a warrior woman appeared, cutting down the zombies with a few swift strikes. Kenichiro and Shizuka were stunned. Akira, who also loved roleplay, lit up with admiration, and after she thanked them, she introduced herself.
感じていただいて痛み入ります。ベアトリックス・アメルハウザーと申します。
外国人。
女の子？突っ込むとこ多くない？
Her name was Beatrix, and she had always been fascinated by Japanese culture, which was why she came from far away. But just after arriving, the zombie virus broke out. Akira opened the cargo hold of the truck and found it packed with seafood. Beatrix hurriedly begged Akira to help deliver it to Takasaki. She wanted to taste authentic sushi before she died, and Takasaki still had a surviving sushi chef. Hearing this reason, Shizuka and Kenichiro were speechless, but Akira agreed right away. Then they remembered that Akira's seventh wish was to eat sushi until full. Since Takasaki wasn't far, Shizuka and Kenichiro reluctantly agreed. Soon they arrived in Takasaki. However, when they reached the entrance of the sushi shop, they found the area swarming with zombies, so Akira and Beatrix quickly suited up, ready to confront the zombies head-on. Shizuka was speechless and immediately offered them a strategy. Her idea was for Kenichiro to run in and draw the zombies' attention, then use the truck to block their path, while Akira honked the horn to draw out the hidden zombies nearby. Once the zombies were all gathered, they would throw gasoline bottles onto them and set them on fire. But at the critical moment, their matches wouldn't light. Seeing more and more zombies climbing over the truck and charging toward the camper loaded with seafood, Akira and Beatrix could no longer sit still.
やりましょう、アキラさん。
はい。
But the horde was overwhelming, and they would run out of strength eventually. At that moment, a drone carrying a speaker flew overhead, playing music and luring the zombies away. While they fought, Shizuka and Kenichiro had found another fire source. Once all the zombies gathered at the gas station they had already doused with fuel, Kenichiro threw a Molotov. After clearing the zombies, they finally found the sushi chef and enjoyed real sushi. With Akira and Beatrix's wishes fulfilled, they set off for Akira's hometown again, and Beatrix joined the group. Because the weather was too hot, everyone was sweaty and sticky. So when they passed a hot spring town, they decided to take a soak. Beatrix couldn't help talking about hot spring culture. Hearing her speak so fluently, Akira praised her, surprised that a foreigner knew more than him, while Kenicho flattered her as well. Feeling left out, Akira turned to Shizuka and started talking about love. But Shizuka was dismissive, saying that instead of wasting time and resources on the short joy of romance, it was better to learn and work while young, and only think about it after earning enough. Akira argued that being with someone you like makes every day more joyful, and even work feels more motivated.
バカらしい。好きになってくれない人を好いたり、好きでもない人に好かれたり。恋愛なんて面倒でコスパが悪くて時間の無駄なだけよ。
Her words left Akira speechless, so he quickly suggested they find a hot spring. He and Kenicho jumped straight in, and seeing their excitement, Shizuka became eager as well. But just as she headed toward the women's bath, Beatrix told her there was no hot water there, meaning this was the only working hot spring in town.
男湯だ
けこんな極限の状況下だ。やむを得ず苦渋の決断を強いられる時もある。
何も恥ずかしがる必要はありません。俺たちと。
無理、下品、不快。全身全霊であなたたちを軽蔑させていただきます。
それは違います、静香さん。え？はるか昔よりこの国には一つどころにはつまり恥じることなどありません。貪欲は歴史ある日本の誇るべき文化なのです。
ありがとう。日本の文化を愛してくれてありがとう。
As Akira and Kenicho rejoiced, a swarm of zombies suddenly emerged from the hot spring. They had no choice but to flee. After climbing up a cliff with their bare hands, they finally escaped the pursuit. Now they could only wait until the zombies left before heading back to their vehicle. At night while sleeping, Akira suddenly felt thirsty, and half awake he went into the forest looking for water, but instead, he stumbled upon a natural hot spring. So Akira immediately went in to bathe, but unexpectedly ran into Shizuka there, and feeling awkward, they used stones to divide the spring into male and female sides. Seeing that Akira had no ill intentions toward her, Shizuka apologized, saying she shouldn't have denied his view on love that afternoon. She only did it because she had never been in a relationship and was afraid of being hurt. So when she heard Akira express his thoughts so sincerely, she still refuted Akira.
いつか私も誰かを好きになるなら、こんな風に素直な自分でいられる相手だといいな。今のは別にそうじゃなくて、あれ
それってつまり。
Just as the atmosphere was becoming awkward, Kenicho and Beatrix found them here.
お前らいつの間にそんな関係に？
いや、これは私も温泉に浸かりたかったのにずるいですよ、二人だけで。
親友の恋路を邪魔する気はないが、この抜け駆けは許せねえ。俺たちにも付き合わせない。
入ってこないでよ。
気持ちいい。
温泉最高です。
温泉最高。
もう仕方ないね。
The next day on the way to Akira's hometown, they discovered the tunnel ahead blocked by trucks. To their shock, inside the tunnel, countless zombies were trapped as far as the eye could see, making them wonder if the village had already fallen. Fortunately, Akira didn't recognize any of the zombies inside, which suggested the village was mostly likely safe and sound. It was estimated that the villagers had gathered the zombies together to quarantine them and avoid further infection. Their only option now was to cross the forest and go around the mountain. But not long after, they heard shouting, and turning back, they saw an old man chased by a wild boar zombie. The old man was named Masaru, and while looking for a safe place, he had suddenly run into the boar. So he was very thankful for their help. But Shizuka wondered if such a safe place really existed. After crossing the jungle, they saw a half-finished treehouse. It turned out Masaru was a very skilled carpenter. The branches of this oak tree were quite thick and strong. Even its boughs could support the weight of a treehouse. Akira's eyes lit up, and he even wanted to help, since there might be more boar zombies and many hands would make the work easier. In this post-apocalyptic world, creating a secret base where one could forget their troubles and enjoy freedom, close to nature, was everyone's dream. In this lifetime, to build a treehouse with your own hands is such a wonderful thing. So they quickly began construction. Measuring distance between trees with the naked eye was hard, but once they filled pipes with water, it became obvious. And through Masaru's guidance, they learned a lot. Building a treehouse required different methods for different woods. The kind of house that could be made depended on the wood itself, and the trees would slowly tell you how. If you didn't know what to do, you asked the forest, carefully considering the surroundings after seeing the trees, and in this way the treehouse naturally blended into the forest. Then you could hear the voice of the forest. While thinking, you also had to pay attention to everything around, as if you were taking in the whole world.
ってことは、自分を思えば周りのことを考えて、世界のことを気にするようになるのかな。だとしたら、いつか世界の声が聞こえたとき、俺はやりたいことリストにどんなことを書くんだろう。
Seeing Akira's talent, Masaru sighed that his son had also loved building huts as a child, though always clumsy. When Akira asked about Masaru's son, the air suddenly fell silent. It turned out his son had been eaten right in front of him by his wife.
俺が支えてますから、一緒に完成させましょう。
ありがとうよ。よっしゃ！
With everyone's effort, the treehouse was soon finished.
完成！
最高の家だ！
この缶詰とても美味しいです。
百貨店からいただいといて正解ね。
Akira had fulfilled another wish. When it was time to part, Masaru said, though he was reluctant, he would always stay in the forest, and if they needed help, they could come back anytime. And so they set off on their way back again, but the road seemed a little dangerous, and Kenicho was nearly scared to death. This mountain path had once been called Cannibal Peak, where many climbers had died. Before the tunnel was dug, it was the only road connecting the village to the outside world. It was said the village was used to exile criminals long ago. After 2.5 hours of traveling, Akira finally arrived at the hometown where he had lived since childhood. From a distance, the village didn't seem to have been damaged by the zombies. The closer he got to his hometown, Akira couldn't help but recall that after growing up, he had hardly ever returned to honor his parents. On their birthdays, on the day he received his first paycheck, there had clearly been many opportunities, but he had never thought about it. And this time, he was determined to truly show filial piety to his parents, but when they saw the village up close, they were stunned. The place looked broken and empty, with no one in sight. Had it really been attacked?
親父、おふくろ！
アキラ！
嘘だろ！頼むからマジでいてくれよ！親父、おふくろ！
いいよさ、いいよさ、飲めよ、踊れよ、いいよさ、いいよさ。
In fact, the villagers were partying, and an old man recognized him as Tendo's son. When his mother saw Akira, she froze. Seeing his parents safe, Akira relaxed, tears flowing as he apologized. For 2.5 years, he had been too busy to visit, and he was deeply sorry. Hearing this, his father slowly stood, and Akira expected an embrace.
そんなくだらねえことを言いにわざわざ帰ってきたんか。世間が大変な状況になっているの。ちった考えて動け。
Looking at Akira's companions, his father said there were plenty of empty rooms to choose from and that he had farm work to finish, so he left. Back home, his mother prepared a lavish meal. Beatrix's eyes lit up at the sight, and Kenicho dug in without the slightest hesitation. Shizuka asked if the village had always been self-sufficient. His mother explained they were remote, so they had lived off farming and hunting long ago. Someone had spread the word that the village was safe. So many outsiders came here to seek refuge, But among the refugees there were infected people, and after mutating they bit those around them. So the village had to seal the tunnel and isolate the infected inside. Because the village population had dwindled, many houses were left empty, so they distributed some houses for everyone to live in. Hearing this, Beatrix asked Akira if he wanted to add renovating his old house to his wish list.
おお、いいねそれ。あ、待て待て、俺ははるばる実家に何しに帰ってきたんだよ。親父とお袋にまだ何も恩返ししてねえじゃん。親孝行するんだろ、俺。
Akira gently tricked his mother into the living room, then brought out popular Tokyo sweets he had carried while massaging her shoulders and telling stories from his journey. His mother was delighted, but seeing his exhaustion, she urged him to rest. Just then, his father returned and asked Akira to help outside. So he worked the fields for 2.5 hours, then went to the stream to wash fruit. Akira felt a wave of confusion because he didn't know how to properly honor his parents. On the other side, Akira's father seemed unwell. He coughed up blood and knew his time was running out. On their way back, they suddenly encountered 4 people. As Akira brushed past the delinquents, he sensed something was wrong. Only because that direction led to the tunnel full of zombies.
どっかで。
本当にやるのか？
当然。
To satisfy his twisted desires, the antisocial Higurashi released zombies into the village for slaughter. Because back in university, every time he saw Akira's happy smile, it made him feel unbearable. As a NEET, he didn't have a single friend. When meeting Akira again, he developed the urge to witness with his own eyes Akira's transformation into a zombie. He was even willing to turn the entire village into a living hell.
家に隠れてる村人どもを引きずり出して一人残らずゾンビの餌にしてやれ。鬼ごっこの次はかくれんぼ。やっぱ夏休みはこうでなくちゃ。
At nightfall, Akira sat with his father, hoping they could share a drink together. It had been a long time and he noticed his father had aged, his head now mostly white. He realized he had been away working for so long that he had neglected his family's health, and in that time his father had grown frail. So he resolved to tell his father that ever since returning he had been thinking that though he once longed for the big city as a child, life in the village was also truly joyful. The fields were vast and too tiring for one man, so he wanted to stay and help. Hearing this, his father said there was no use shrinking into a village, that a man should live with greater dreams. He asked if Akira knew what it felt like to look at Earth from the far reaches of space. It was like graduating school and stepping into society or leaving the village for the city. Only then did you understand how small the world you knew had been. But at the same time, humanity was still just an insignificant presence in the vast universe. He said that his childhood dream was to become an astronaut, but his intelligence had never been enough to achieve that dream. Hearing this, Akira was amazed at his father's dream. His father wanted him to understand that in the 13.8 billion year history of the universe, an 80-year human life was but 0.1 seconds. So don't hide away in a small place like a village. Go and see the wider world, hold on to your own dream, and fight for it. Because without a dream, a man was no different from a salted fish. But changing the subject, he joked that Akira's new hairstyle made him look like he'd seen a ghost at night. Those dreadlocks were another of Akira's wishes, styled for him by 3 makeup masters in the village. Meanwhile, Naoki from Higurashi's team quietly took the car keys, and Tuko went to the power room to sabotage the electricity. They then drove away the excavator that had been blocking the tunnel, releasing all the zombies inside. Their goal was to unleash destruction in the village and to take revenge on Akira. By the time Akira realized, the village was already in flames, waves of zombies pouring in, and the once peaceful place was smothered in terror. Elsewhere, Shizuka noticed something wrong and urged the villagers to hide inside their homes. But 2 zombies lunged at her, and in the critical moment, hunters appeared with rifles. Unfortunately, they were outnumbered and could only retreat into the houses for cover. Finding it boring that villagers were hiding, Higurashi lit his explosives and rained blasts onto the shelters.
ひどすぎる。なんとかしないと。このままじゃ村が全滅する。
Meanwhile, Kenicho carrying a child was chased by zombies, and at the last moment, Beatrix arrived and cut them down. Soon, Akira and Shizuka ran over, and seeing everyone safe, they sighed in relief. But the situation was dire, and there was no time to chat. They needed to arrange the villagers' escape. However, the voltage of the electric fence around the village had originally only been meant to scare off wild boars and zombies. After being deliberately sabotaged, the voltage had risen to a level unbearable for humans. Shizuka quickly grabbed a stick to help Kenichiro. After Kenichiro risked himself, Beatrix realized someone had increased the voltage and sabotaged the breakers. The fence that once protected the villagers now trapped them inside. Just then, a sound rang out. The antisocial team drove an excavator slowly toward them, followed closely by a horde of zombies. Even fools could see this was Higarashi's doing.
ごめんだ一体何のために
どうせいつかみんなゾンビになっちまうんだ。だったらそれまでにやりたいことやっとかないと損だよな。
When Akira noticed Higarashi's notebook, he was shocked, because his own list was about fulfilling wishes, while Higarashi's list was about taking revenge on the world. Higarashi's 38th wish was to personally witness Akira's transformation into a zombie. Kenichiro couldn't understand what deep grudge Higurashi had against Akira, that he would go so far as to turn the village into hell. Higurashi said angrily that he had always disliked Akira since university days. Seeing Akira's carefree face enjoying life every day irritated him to the extreme, as a NEET. When the zombie outbreak erupted, the darkness inside him burst out as well, and to enjoy the last summer of his life, he gathered a band of antisocial thugs and carried out destruction without restraint. Hearing this, Akira admitted that life only happens once, and he agreed with the idea of enjoying life to the fullest. But if you claim your own freedom, then you must also respect the freedom of others.
ちょっとマジで何言ってるかわかんねえや。俺のリストをお前のなんかと一緒にするな。俺をここまで育ててくれた親父にもおふくろにも俺はまだ何も恩返しできてねえんだ。ここで親孝行できずに後悔するくらいならゾンビに食われた方がマシだ。
いいね、そうこなくっちゃ。どっちのリストを達成できるか。これは俺とお前のゲームだ。
2.5 minutes ago, they planned to split up, but Kenichiro unexpectedly noticed Anju suddenly running away, only because her little dog, which had been with her for years, was missing. She thought her dog had died, but unexpectedly. At that moment, Kenichiro, who was closely following her, covered Anju's mouth. Zombies were constantly passing by outside the room, and if they were discovered, it would be over. Anju whispered that her parents had died when the disaster struck, and her dog was her only family left. Suddenly, the zombies outside seemed to notice them, and Kenichiro grabbed a ladder and climbed with Anju to the roof to hide. He said zombies couldn't possibly climb ladders, but just as he finished speaking, a shadow slowly appeared. It was Shigenobu from Higarashi's team who came to stop them, because as someone at the very bottom of society, he met obstacles everywhere, living each day without finding a place where he belonged. When the zombie outbreak came, his mind twisted further, and seeing others smiling happily made him feel unbearable. He shoved Kenichiro hard toward the roof's edge, planning to let him fall and feed the zombies. Kenichiro suddenly noticed the cesspit below and came up with a perfect plan. He tightly gripped Shigenobu's steel fork, and both of them fell down together. In that instant, Shigenobu was stunned, not understanding what Kenichiro was doing. But as Kenichiro saw the cesspit, he thought of one thing. How exactly did zombies detect them? Was it movement, sound, smell, or body heat? If those factors were removed, zombies wouldn't notice him, so without hesitation, he jumped straight into the cesspit. Shigenobu meanwhile crawled and scrambled to escape the zombies' encirclement. When he saw the electric fence, he thought climbing over it would mean safety, but he didn't know that his companions had already sabotaged it.
どうせ落ちるなら不幸のどん底じゃなくて声だめにしときゃゾンビにならずに済んだのにな。
お風呂に入るまでは絶好ね。
Elsewhere, Shizuka went to the villagers' quarters to lead them out. The thin wooden door could never withstand the horde of zombies, but the villagers refused to leave because there were many elderly people inside who could hardly move. Suddenly, zombies started pounding on the windows, and if it continued, they would never escape. Shizuka shouted loudly to draw the zombies' attention, planning to use herself as bait to lure them away and begging the others not to give up. When she realized what she was doing, she knew it didn't match her usual risk assessment logic. Her escape route was being watched by Naoki, who waited nearby. When she tried to hide, he revealed himself.
若い女の子とこんなところで二人っきりなんてラッキーなんだ
ってどういう
お俺の一番やりたいことは女の子に無理やりペロチをする
Hearing his words, Shizuka ran, disgusted beyond belief. If she were forced into a kiss by those fat lips, she would rather be eaten by zombies. Meanwhile, Old Man Hikoi learned that Shizuka had gone alone to draw the zombies away so the others wouldn't be attacked. These old men, who struggled even to walk properly, had no way to help her. But Hikoi grew angry, asking when had life ever gone as they wished? When land reforms ruined livelihoods, hadn't they clenched their hoes and endured? When typhoons and scorching summers destroyed their crops, hadn't they gritted their teeth and pushed forward? They always believed tomorrow would be better, and that was why they had lived to this day. Just as Naoki caught up to Shizuka and was about to do whatever he wanted to her. Having barely escaped with her life, Shizuka let out a sigh of relief. Seeing the situation turning dire, Naoki decided to force a kiss on Shizuka to fulfill his wish. At the critical moment, the elderly stepped forward. Elsewhere, Beatrix clashed fiercely with Tuko, but Tuko's chainsaw pushed her back again and again. Tuko had twice placed in the top 4 at the National High School Kendo Championships. Beatrix, wielding her katana, could only defend with all her strength, and soon the blade was completely nicked. If things went on like this, defeat was inevitable. The roar of the chainsaw kept drawing more zombies, so Tuko planned to finish it fast. Tuko was extremely self-centered, believing anyone who disagreed with her was wrong, and that anyone who got in her way should become a zombie. Beatrix disagreed, saying that in her country, supermarket clerks chewed gum while serving customers, and birthday parties were hosted and paid for by the birthday person, so what Tuko saw as absurd was normal to others.
お前も私の正しさを否定する気？お前らの文化なんて知るか！間違った人間は黙ってとっととゾンビになりゃいいんだよ！
Suddenly, Beatrix leapt high, and as Tuko was caught off guard, she grabbed the water wheel behind her, luring zombies over, then destroyed the water wheel to cut the power supply. Without power, the electric fence would lose its strength, and this was Beatrix's plan. Tuko was stunned, unable to believe what she had just seen. Beatrix explained that there is no such thing as a perfectly correct set of values in the world. What Tuko was doing was forcing her own justice on others, and maybe it was time to stop and think whether her actions had ever truly been right or wrong. Meanwhile, Akira's parents' house was surrounded by zombies, and the thin door was about to break. At the last second, Akira arrived with a hoe, striking down the zombies and holding the entrance. He spoke from his heart to his parents inside the house. He had not yet begun to show his filial piety. He had not been promoted or given a raise to send money home. He had not taken his parents on a trip abroad. He had not found someone to marry. He had not fulfilled their wish of holding a grandchild. There were still so many things he hadn't done. If he waited until they were gone, it would be too late. So while they were still alive and healthy, he wanted to do it all. Hearing this, Teruo was deeply moved, grabbed a hoe, opened the door, and pulled Akira inside.
母ちゃんも頼んだぞ。
He said that if Akira wanted to honor his parents, then he could not die before them. As the zombies slowly pressed toward him, Akira tried to rush out to help, but his father stopped him. Opening the door would put everyone at risk inside. Teruo, who had farmed his whole life, had nothing much, but his strength was still immense, and a mere horde of zombies was nothing to him. But sadly, with his illness, he could not last more than 2.5 minutes before pain struck him again.
なんてことでこんな時にとうとう時間切れだってのかい。情けねえ。
At the critical moment, Higurashi suddenly pulled Teruo to safety. In truth, Higurashi had long wondered why Akira's luck was always so good, and he thought to himself, what could he do to finally make Akira become a zombie? Now the chance had fallen into his lap, and he used Akira's father as leverage.
いいか、親父を蹴り落とされたくなかったらその戸を開けてお前がゾンビになれ。親孝行したいんだろ。だったら親父の前で息子らしいとこ見せてみろよ。
Hearing this, Akira was at a loss, because if he went outside to save his father, the zombies might rush inside, and even if he went out, Higurashi would not spare them. At that moment, Teruo shouted loudly for Akira never to open the door. This would not only put Akira's mother in danger, but also cost Akira his life. To make Akira give up, Teruo told him that he did not have much time left, that his life was already near its end. Akira's mother explained that his father's body had grown something bad inside, and with no doctors or medicine in the village, he would not last much longer. Hearing this, Akira could not accept it. With luck, they might soon meet a doctor, and maybe even tomorrow someone could develop a vaccine against the zombies. He regretted deeply that since returning he had not had the chance to properly honor his father. Seeing this, Teruo told Akira that if he could, he should help others as much as possible, do what he could for society, and become a man who understood the pain of others. Even if his parents died, he could still honor them, for he would be watching from heaven, proud to see him live with dignity, and that would be his greatest pride. Hearing this, Akira's mind filled with memories of his father's words, and he opened the door and let the zombies rush in. Soon, the room echoed with Akira's heart-wrenching screams.
なんてバカなことを。
とうとう大嫌いなアキラをゾンビにしてやったぜ。
For Higurashi, his wish was fulfilled, and he felt ecstatic, no longer seeing that infuriating smile on Akira's face.
俺の勝ちだ。
But at this moment, Higurashi was stunned. Hadn't Akira turned into a zombie? But in fact, Akira had come up with an idea because the 3 girls who had braided his dreadlocks were incredible makeup artists, and with their skills, they had transformed him to look exactly like a zombie. Coincidentally, cosplay was also one of Akira's wishes. Higurashi could not believe he had been defeated by makeup. Akira turned and asked him what his true wish was, because he noticed that all of Higurashi's actions had not truly brought him happiness. Higurashi tried to argue, but pain in his leg made him turn, and he saw zombies biting into his calf, and in that instant, he panicked. Though he kicked them off, it was useless, because the infection meant he would eventually become a zombie. As the horde pressed closer, the girls urged Akira to run, but Akira still asked Higurashi what the real wish in his notebook was. Higurashi thought for a moment, asking himself what he truly wanted. He remembered that, when he was a child, playing in the swimming pool with friends was the happiest time of his life. But as he grew older, his introverted nature took over, and he ended up alone with no friends. Seeing Akira's carefree smile made the seed of jealousy grow stronger. But looking back, what he really wished for was the small dream of playing in the pool with friends again. Back then, Akira had noticed him, and even invited him to join. But Higurashi's shyness made him run away without saying a word. Akira told him he was foolish because if he had just said yes, Akira would have gladly been his friend. Though it was too late now, if one day he too became a zombie, they could go to the pool together and fulfill that wish. Hearing this, Higurashi broke down, because even after all his evil deeds, he had found redemption at the end. As the zombies drew near, he shoved Akira aside and ran into the horde, using the last of his reason to draw them away, the only thing he could do for Akira. At the stream, Just before his mind faded, he suddenly saw the pool of his childhood, and a zombie, Akira, smiling at him. In that instant, his wish seemed fulfilled, and he found release. Meanwhile, Akira arrived near the electric fence, and Kenicho and Shizuka, who had rescued the villagers, also caught up. At that moment, the zombie army charged toward them. Just as everyone was at a loss, Beatrix came rolling in on a water wheel, telling everyone to make way. They ran toward the suspension bridge, only to find it destroyed. Their only escape gone, was there no hope left. Then a voice called from the distance, and a bridge was thrown down before Akira. It was Masaru from the mountain. He had heard the noise of the zombies and came to check, and when he saw the bridge broken, he quickly built a temporary one, never expecting it to be used so soon. As the zombies rushed at them, Akira and Kenicho held the ropes of the bridge, letting the villagers escape across. In this way, the villagers escaped safely, and the horde was herded back into the tunnel. Masaru stayed in the village to help direct the recovery efforts, but sadly, Teruo's condition worsened. With no doctor, there was nothing they could do, and though he slept, his forehead was covered in cold sweat as he endured the pain. At this moment, Akira's mother brought a basin of warm water and said to him that although his father suffered every night, he was always thinking of him. Ever since you went to Tokyo, he has asked every day if you had called. He may seem indifferent, but deep down he truly cares, worrying about whether you are doing well on your own in the big city. Akira said that if anything happened to his father, he wanted to take his place in protecting his mother and the village. But Akira was curious what illness his father had.
字ってあの字？
そうさ、この人病院嫌いでほっといたから今じゃ自覚の出血はひでえわ、立ってられねえくれ、痛がるわで大変なんだい。
Because of the countryside heat, his father simply could not sleep well at night. That was why he suffered. Hearing this, Akira couldn't help but laugh. Recalling his father's words, he decided he could only leave the village to fulfill his dreams. If the zombies were caused by a virus, then he would travel across Japan to look for answers and afterward take his father to have surgery. So everyone wrote their own wishes into the notebook. The next day, with the villagers sending them off, they left the village.
で、どうするアキラ？ウイルスを止める方法となるとワクチンか？
だったら目指すは感染研究所か米軍基地か。
北だ！北？旅人は北を目指すもんだ！ってなんかワクワクするじゃん！
And so, Zom 100, Bucket List of the Dead, reached its conclusion. Although readers knew some parts of the manga, the author may have sped up the romance of the main characters, leading to mixed feelings, and under pressure the author made changes. For those who prefer pure love, this might be a flaw, but still, this series is undeniably entertaining.
次は北海道だ！
いいと思うぜ！